we've also had people suffer from just mental issues, stress, the life in America, how difficult it is, how lonely it can be. We have had that problem. And some of us may feel that we don't have a problem, we're okay, but sometimes you may be suffering from stress or be dealing with something that you yourself do not understand. And I have personally, actually recently just had that happen with a friend of mine, a very dear friend of mine for 20 years who came to visit me. And he just broke down. And he went to what we call Mwendowazimu, but he actually broke down into that state. But thank God he was treated and he's back to normal. So these things can happen to us. And with the stress of life, with the jobs that we do, you can end up breaking down, not just from mental, but also physically. So that's why we asked our speakers here to come and talk to us about these issues. And also they will talk to us about just cultural issues that we may face moving from one culture to another. And some of us get married into other cultures, and there's always issues that go between there. And they will also touch on family education, where we deal with child education or childhood development and things like that. So I'm not the professor, so I don't want to go talking too much about it, but I will introduce them to you so that you know who they are and welcome them Kenyan style. They have been staying in a state where they're the only two Kenyans over there. So this is like a surprise and amazing to them. So welcome them back here to Kenya. First of all, I'm going to introduce the lady behind the man, because it's usually a strong lady that pushes a man. So Miss Margaret Gishuru, please stand up. Meet the Kenyans.
Habari zenyu. Asante sana kwa kutukaribisha. Tunafurahi kuwa hapa na tunaomba vile tutaongea itakuwa ikiwasaidia na itusaidia. Asanteni.
Thank you very much, Margaret Gishuru. Mpatie makofi ya Kenya ile. Moja, mbili, tatu. Thank you. So next, to introduce Mr. Stephen Gitonga. And Mr. Stephen Gitonga and Margaret Gishuru are actually parents of one of our board members, Mr. Alex Curie. So their son was instrumental into asking them to come through, and we want to thank them for that. Mr. Stephen Gitonga, please.
Asante sana. Thank you very much. We are so happy to be here tonight to chat with fellow Kenyans, brothers and sisters. That is our joy, to be able to share what we have, and hopefully this will not be the end. In fact, we are pioneers. Feel free to invite us. It's not very far where we live. It's only 14 hours drive.
Thank you so much, Mr. Gitonga. Let's welcome Mr. Gitonga with the Kenyan claps. Moja, mbili, tatu, funga, fungua. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, I think we are ready to receive some words of wisdom from our professors. And as people come in, go ahead, come on in. Kenyan time. Forgive us, but now at least you're reminded of how Kenya is. Yeah, so they'll be coming in slowly. Mr. Stephen Gitonga will start off, and he will be talking to us, discussions of achievements and challenges, experiences. So without further ado, one second. Of course, but before, thank you, Mr. Community Organizer. Thank you so much. He said something very important, and that is why we have Pastor John Pastor John Mugaka up here. Before we start any function, we'll start with a word of prayer. Thank you. Pastor Mugaka, please.
Thank you. Let's all stand as we let's bow our heads as we pray. Heavenly Father, we just want to thank you. We lift your name on high. Thank you for the opportunity and the chance you've given unto us, even to meet in this place, Father God, to hear what you have for us. We know there are so many challenges that we face, but Lord, as you use your servants to speak unto us, we pray that, Lord, may your wisdom be upon them this moment. Open our minds, open our spiritual ears, even our spiritual hearts, Almighty Father. Lord, will be able to hear what you have for us this night. It is something, Lord, that you have prepared for us to hear, and it's something which is going to change our lives. We thank you for the speakers. We leave them unto you, and we pray that, Lord, may you continue to use them, even from this moment, even wherever they are working, they are doing their jobs, their businesses, Almighty Father. Continue to use them as instruments of honor to be used by you. We thank you and we honor you. For this we pray, knowing that, Lord, you are with us and you never leave us nor forsake us. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Thank you so much, Mr. Pastor John Mugaka. And without further ado, I will invite Mr. Gitonga to come and speak to us. Mr. Gitonga, come on, please.
As the title says, ni majadiliano, so we shall do a lot of discussing. And because we are brand new to Jacksonville, Florida, we shall want to learn more about you as we continue with these conversations. As you see, as introduced earlier, my name is Stephen Gitonga. I am a professor at Lock Haven University in Pennsylvania. My specialization is clinical mental health counseling. We train mental health counselors. It's a graduate program, and our graduates are all over the country because it's all purely online. And the kinds of things we learn in this program are the kinds of things that we shall be sharing here tonight. And hopefully, after we learn what it is that you will want us to target specifically, then we shall do that. And that's why we said we are available if that becomes necessary. Getting to Florida, we always look for reasons to come to Florida. Because as you know, Pennsylvania is sometimes very cold. But I understand this temperature today in Florida is a bit cold. It's usually warmer than it is. Now, even though our flag Kenya is up there, this is open to anybody, everybody. We all know what our flag stands for. And so the next slide will be to introduce the topics that will be covered tonight. And we forgot to add there lots of discussions and conversations about education. So towards the very end, we shall talk about education. So the first bullet is to congratulate you for having relocated from Kenya and settled here in the US. It is not easy, as you all have experienced, to do that. And adjusting to new life, there are always many challenges, even though it is also a good experience. So we shall start our very first conversations about culture. And we all know that we have a culture. Even if we did not know, it is true that each one of us has a culture. And we do have a common culture as Kenyans. Now, I don't know about Florida, but where we live in Pennsylvania, when they hear that we have a slightly different accent, they want to know, where are you from? And some people don't understand Kenya. They don't even understand where Africa is. Well, some do, but I think in schools they don't learn about Kenya as much as we learned about the US when we were in Kenya. And so they might assume that all Kenyans belong to one culture. But we know that that is not necessarily true, and especially for the first generation Kenyan Americans. What I mean by that is those of us who were born and raised in Kenya, then relocated to the US. You do have your tribe, and you do have your language, and you do have everything that you learned then, you bring it with you here. The second generation of Kenyan Americans, those are people who are born here. They will have same or different cultural traditions. They will speak your language, or they might not speak your language. And those are the kinds of things we shall talk about. So, as the second bullet points out, we are all Kenyans, but we are also Kenyans with a different race. Not all of us are Kenyans who are black, as our flag says. We have Kenyans who are also white. We have Kenyans who are also of Hispanic origin. We have Kenyans who are of Indian origin. What are your values? Now, let me ask you that question. And if you are seated next to somebody, I would like you to talk about what is important to you as your value, and then we shall share, we shall discuss what it is that we came up with. So take a moment and chat with the person seated next to you about what you consider as your values. What values are important to you? Tumefika wapi? Tumemaliza? Values? All right, examples of values. Let's hear from who is ready to share with us your values that you discussed.
Hello. This table here, we came up with respect for each one of us. If I meet you or you meet me, I would want you to be respectful to me. I would want you to understand me. I would want you to appreciate my values. Coming from Africa and I'm here in America, even the Americans, I want them to understand me, to respect me and value me. integrity, all those acronyms.
Makofi kwake. All right, what did you come up with as values?
We said family.
Family is important, very, very important. In fact, it is so important that probably it's number one. Because without family, we wouldn't be here, would we? No?
Everybody said we got family.
Oh, you said family?
Yeah, we got
Oh, you came about family as well, thank you.
Or say something to add on,
Yeah, we added professionalism in whatever you do.
Yes.
Perfect. Professionalism. Hiyo ina maana you do what you do following the guidelines of your profession. Whatever profession it is.
We came up with love.
That's amazing. Love, yes, that's very important. Love. Without love, and we can describe love in so many ways. I wonder whether you would like to expound on that. What do you mean by love?
What I mean by love is that we know how Jesus Christ died for us on the cross because of love, and we wouldn't be here because of that love today.
Thank you very much indeed. And that, I think we are in agreement that if we love each other the way Jesus asked us to do, then we wouldn't be having the kinds of problems that we do. What did you come up with?
You need money.
Hey, Kenyan shillings. Dollars. Ni kweli kabisa. That's very true. We value money, and without money, we expect many problems. Are we done with this? No, not yet. What did you come up with?
Family and good life.
Family and good life.
And friends. We value friends too.
Friends.
Friendship.
Friendship. Wonderful. All right. Family, good life, friendships. Very, very important. Yes.
Our table came up with, we copied a few people, family, integrity, love, but also most important, tradition and culture. Like me, I still eat ugali and chai, fish, chicken.
Na chapati, na karanga. Good. So these are values that are dear to you, and we should not discard them away just because we have relocated from Kenya to the US. There are some values which we shall gain by relocating to this country now that we are here. We shall borrow some values that we think are important for us. We shall discard other values that we might not quite like, and we shall hold on to the values that we think are going to be helpful for us. So the slide continues to ask questions like, what are your Kenyan practices? Are you going to continue doing those kinds of things that you used to do in Kenya, or are you going to put them aside, or are you going to pick up others that you have found useful for you, that you picked up from Jacksonville, Florida, or wherever else you have been in this country? Religion. Are we able to practice our religion? Are we able to practice our spirituality? And the very last bullet on that side is, what is your cultural identity? I think there is a bullet point somewhere else that says, Mwachamila ni mtumwa. Na mtumwa, that's a slave. That's a very powerful message that we got from Wahenga from Mombasa, that Mwachamila ni mtumwa. If we discard all those things that you talked about, our values, and adopt foreign values that are not going to be helpful to us, then we shall be slaves. We shall be their slaves, and we don't want to be their slaves. We want to maintain our cultural identity. There is a bullet point that talks about age. And we know from Kenya what age means. And is the issue of age, the way we understand it in Kenya, the same here, or is it different? I do remember walking back home, we were not even taught. We just learned that it is important for our children to respect elderly people. That if you are walking along the path, and this is a single person path, and then you meet someone who is older than you, what did you used to do?
Give way.
Give way. Yield. The wife, they yield to an older person. Sometimes that is not a value for people elsewhere. When someone becomes old, then this person is regarded not in the higher caliber as we used to do in Kenya. And we can see the kinds of commercials that we have on TV now. They glorify a lot about youth, and that's perfectly okay. But they forget to glorify the older folks as well. So we should know that that's what's going on, and then if we hold on to our value that it is important to respect the elderly, then we shall maintain that as our cultural value, and we shall not be swayed into thinking that the older one becomes, the less educated that person becomes, as sometimes they try to portray. Nimesema kweli? The same case about marital status. We know what that means in our respective tribes back home. But it may not be taken as seriously in this country as it was in Kenya. Now, let me ask you if you know the rate of divorce in this country, emanating from the first marriage. What is the percentage of divorce from first marriage in this country? Do you have an idea? It's more than 30%. Yes? 50%? Yeah, 40 to 50%. Now, that by itself might not appear to be a big deal, because the adults involved are okay. They can live by themselves, or they can find other spouses. But what happens, especially the first generation of Kenyan Americans, is that marriage was not a union of just two people. Marriage was a union of what? Many people. Yes? You would get married into your in-laws. I mean, two in-laws getting married through that type of marriage. But it is different in this country. The union is between the two people. And if they disagree, then they disagree. Usually what happens is problems will arise, not necessarily between these two that have separated or divorced, but their children. And we see this in mental health counseling, that they end up experiencing challenges and difficulties after divorce happens. All right, there's so many things we have gained by coming to this country, but there are also many things that we have lost. We have lost, sometimes we have lost a lot, more than what we have gained. But Nyamachoma, have we lost it? Not yet. All right, now let's see the next slide, please. And before, I think there was a very last slide there that talked about haraka haraka haina baraka. And that, what that means is different from the culture in the US. It's perfectly okay to be late. But sometimes you learn the hard way that it is not okay to be late, especially if you're going to an appointment or you're going to a wedding. Like my first experience in this country, I was invited to a wedding that was going to start at 2 p.m. Now I thought, wow, a wedding, that's the entire day, just like in Kenya. So I went at 3. And I thought, oh my goodness, I'm so early, there's nobody in here. Now little did I know that the wedding was well done, long time ago, and everybody had left. So I missed the wedding. So when we move from one country to another, we become acculturated. So the phenomenon of acculturation is must happen. People must be enculturated and acculturated. Now, the levels of acculturation are different. There is integration where you come in with your values and you integrate your values with the values of the host, and life is good. There is assimilation where you become assimilated or you assimilate into the culture of the host. Separation, you stay by yourself and separate from the host and maintain your culture. Now, for those of you who have been to Chicago, you must have learned that Chicago is divided into zones. You go to one zone and it's pure white. You go to another zone, you see people from Poland. You go to another zone, they're Chinese. And the Chinese who live with the Chinese, in fact, they have stores that are all marked in Chinese. You go to the restaurant, it's all Chinese, everything Chinese. So likewise for Poland, French, German quarters. But when they are all riding on the train, you will see them assimilated. But when they get off the train, you will now see the divisions. People will walk with people that they belong to. And that is perfectly okay. So long as we respect, I think some who mentioned about respect. So long as we respect each other, that's perfectly okay. The first and second generation of immigrants, I said the first generation are people who are born and raised in Kenya. They came to this country and they have assimilated, they have enculturated into this country, but they still have their own values that they will not discard. And that is very essential, I think. The second generation immigrants are people who are born here from families that relocated who are born in Kenya. Now, as we speak, the level of acculturation will be different. Those that are born and raised here will tend to adopt more cultural tenets or cultural values of the host, which is the US. And by the way, the US is not a single culture. The US has so many cultures, so many different cultures. And depending on where you are in this country, then you will be enculturated amongst that group that you are living with. So if you're among the Hispanics, chances are that you'll pick up a few values and traditions of the Hispanics. If you live among the white, depending on where these whites came from, there are some whites who came from Poland, there are some whites who came from England, you will pick up a few of their cultural traditions and beliefs and values. So the second last bullet is balance your own culture with other cultures. So what that means is we shall need to become self-aware and maybe even put down in writing like you did. Become aware of what your culture is. What does culture mean to you? What do I hold on to dearly? What can I not give up? And then maybe have conversations with the second generation Kenyan Americans that live with you so that they understand your position, and then they get to share with you their position as well, and then you negotiate and say, well, this, yes, I will agree with, yeah, this, probably not. Now, let me give you an example to make things clear. Now, if in your culture, a man believes that it is not his place to go to the kitchen, yeah? You will quickly learn that that is a belief that should not be held on to dearly, that you will need to kick that one out. Because if the man and the woman are both working, and it so happens that the woman is off duty that day, she will cook. Vice versa, there is an expectation that if the man is in the house off duty that day, he should cook. Yeah? Even though culturally it is unheard of. In fact, when you call your folks back home and tell them, I am in the kitchen making ugali, then they might say to you, nafikiri wewe umekaliwa sana. Yeah, so those are the kinds of things that we shall need to look at and make a decision, a firm decision on what we want to do. Is holding on to this value or belief so important, much more important than the the relationship, the couple relationship? Then if the answer is no, toss that one out. Now we have a few statistics here about immigration from Kenya and immigration into the US from the migration policy document of 2015, which tells us that about 10,000 Kenyans live in California, 10,000 in Texas, and about 100,000 Kenyans live in the US. Well, I think that number is slightly more. We are more than 100,000 today. Yes. The average age is 33 years.
This is the day, this is the day that the Lord has made. This is the time, this is the time that the Lord has made, that the Lord has made. We will rejoice.
We will rejoice and be glad in it, and be glad in it.
This is the time that the Lord has made. We will rejoice and be glad in it. This is the time.
This is the time that the Lord has made.
Give someone a high five. Amen.
Thank you very much. All right, tuko karibu kumaliza, but it is important that we abide by the laws of this country. We abide by the policies of wherever we work, the guidelines in school, maintain your immigration status, that's a given. Avoid DUI, driving under the influence. Drive safely and cautiously. Understand the law and comply with it, and then seek legal counsel. What we will do now, because I understand we have just about 20 more minutes, is we will pause there and ask Mama Gitonga to continue. And
Okay. Yeah, I'll just go through, and I think I've mentioned some of the things I was going to discuss about, so I'll try to summarize because we have a short time now. I will deal with education. All of us, when we come here, we want to be better than we were in Kenya. And as I mentioned to you, when I came here, I had my educational goals and I plan to attain them. And of course, my hope is everyone that's the goal. We all come with different papers. I came as a student, with student visa. So I had to go to school to be able to be legal in this country. And so I had to set my goals and plan to achieve them. Now, all of us come in different. If you have green card, you might say, I'll not take so much time in school, but I am focusing to earn money and support my children. There's nothing wrong with what you plan to do. You all have educational goals, but I'm sure every parent who come here wants their children to be better than they are. And so the focus is also to support our children to have, professional kind of attainment through education. And that's why I'm sure we all work hard in different capacities. There's nothing that anyone does that is bad, so long as you're able to provide food at the table and support your family. But of course, we all encourage and want our children to have a professional line where they can pursue their educational goals. And that's why I thought it was important
to be able to focus on education. So as parents, these are things I'll just kind of go through them. And the one way you support your child in education is trying to be involved in their lives. And it starts from when a child is very young, when they're going to school. There are different ways a parent can be involved. But research shows that when you as a parent or family is involved, it helps improve their children's performance. And it also helps children to have more positive attitude towards school, and also you as a teacher, as a parent, to have more positive attitude. At the same time, it helps children have higher achievement, go to school, attend school more, and complete their work. Homework, as we had mentioned earlier, the value of completing homework. And then it helps increase the enrollment in higher education. Now, we have to be very proud as Kenyans, and this is what I tell them. Now, I've been in the education field in the United States for a long time, and I have been in universities where we have Kenyan students. Let me tell you, they thrive, especially in the sciences. They do very, very well. And I always brag about our students from Africa. I say, look, we have a very good education system that is in high school and even elementary. Our children are well prepared to really have a competitive edge with students in the United States. So always let our children know they can thrive in higher education. And having that confidence, it may be challenging at the beginning because the style of the way it's taught at university level is a bit different, but let them know they are Kenyans and they can thrive. I've never seen, in the schools I've taught, I've had many students from Kenya, and what I see is they do very well and complete their education. I can't count, even where we went for a graduate school, the students from Kenya who never completed. And let me tell you, right now I'm so proud of most of the students because they are doing very well, especially in the field of health. It can be challenging, but I tell people don't aim low. If you think it's health, go as far as you can in getting your educational dream. And when you get to a level, you thrive and you do very well, and the need is there. And I always say, if you aim high in education, don't set low goals. You just have to maneuver and navigate the system and learn how to learn. I tell people, if I was brought up in US, I could be anything. Their system, you just need to master how they go about it, and then just stay focused, and then just do it. You can be anything, and that's what we need to always encourage our children. They can be anything they aim to be. They have the brains. So long as they don't have a disability, there's nothing they cannot do. So long as they can go to school, be persistent. And this is based also on research. They say people who thrive and become very professionally attain highly in their profession is really, and in education, is based on being persistent. You fall down. This is why parents have to be very encouraging. You may not do well in one subject. Don't give up. Learn and master the system. Now, I always say check, if it's science classes, find a professor who doesn't give Fs, who doesn't make it very hard. This is based on research, and you can do that. Fine, ask the other students. And also try to get support from other peers. They have peer tutors if it's sciences. And then find out from the other students when is the best time to register for classes. Always those classes of good professors are the classes where many people register early enough. So know that. Those are the things you need to know. Why? This professor will support you more because that's why the professor is liked. And so it will make you love learning and make you attain higher higher than if you're in a profession who doesn't care about you, has no relationship with you. So it's just learning the system. That's what I'm trying to say. Never ever underestimate what you can be. The young ones around here, I can see they are still encouraged to get the educational goals. And let me tell you, you're never also attain a profession where you go to school in this country. That's the other thing we need to know. I still study. Like last semester, my husband was saying, I cannot study all this. You're studying. I was doing something to do with being a board certified behavioral analyst. And I was reading the whole night because, it's a professional where I felt I can sometimes work during my free time and still get some extra money. But on the other hand, I realized at any age, you can attain your educational goals. You can be what you want to be. And there's that support system in the higher education. Now, you have to know, being in the higher education, I've been teaching teachers, as I've said, for a long time. What I realized is high need of bringing in students in the university. There's a decline in enrollment. So they really support students who are struggling. Never be shy to show you need that extra support to excel. And if you fail that one class, just try next time, redo it. Look for that professor I told you who is supportive and do well. And that is it. You can attain. I've seen students who struggle, but they end up being professional and doing very well. And I'm so proud of them. So this is something I would say as an educator and somebody who really cares about education, that's a line where I know you'll never fail. There's a need for professionals in this country. And Kenyans, we are very intelligent. We have a very good base in education. And just knowing, if you went to primary school and high school in Kenya, we call it secondary school, you can be anything in this country if you set your mind in it, because we have a very good system. Now, let's see. So I was talking about being involved as a parent in your child's education. And so the best thing is to make sure we are there. And how do we get involved? Just going to schools. If your child has a problem, trying to be close to your teacher, to the teacher of your child. Let me tell you, it makes a whole difference. They start respecting your child. I know that because I've taught teachers. So just trying to talk to the parents, show your concern, be very careful. Don't go like you're trying to bash. Sometimes it's unfair what they've done. Sometimes there's unfairness. I've seen it. But always go like you're seeking help and you want to support and work together with the teacher to help your child be successful, regardless of how sometimes you feel is unfair. Approach it in a positive way and respectful, because at the end you want your child to get the benefit of education. Now, the early intervention is something else I've taught about, special education. And we may know families here who have children with disabilities, I don't know. Or sometimes, and I'll connect to something that I have later on, children who have disabilities. Disabilities is based on assessment, They assess and determine what child is delayed in what area. It could be the mind, cognitive, it could be physical, child with cerebral palsy, it could be a genetic condition like, I would say, Down syndrome, chromosomal condition. And so we need to know our friends and be a support system. When you have a child with disability, it's not a very easy thing to deal with if you don't have the community as a support system. So we need to know, and we also need to know that there are services provided. And if I can know parents who have that, there's a way you can get that support, and the child can get the early intervention required at an earlier age, because it starts from birth. And the child can be able to maximize, we always say maximize their potential. They be the best they can. They don't have to be like anybody else, because they are unique. They have their own needs that maybe the disabilities make them kind of delay in specific areas of development. But how do you support? So those are things we need to know. And this assumption, which I say, or I would say in our culture, and even in America it was like that, because I kind of studied the history of what used to be before about children with disabilities. It was like, oh, maybe something, it's the family, something happened, or is kind of what I would say is stigmatized, where you feel like there's something you did wrong to have a child with a disability, which is not the case. And now we know better that it doesn't have to be a reason, just you are one of those who had a child who needs you more and who need more support. So it's very important to support each other as a community. Then that's a lot about early intervention, which I would take a long time, so maybe go to the next. But that's kind of how you can support. Challenging behavior, I've mentioned about it. In America, even as emotional, and that's why we have to be very careful how we interact with the children and how we support them. Now, you know, in Kenya, as I said, we have a shortcut of dealing with a child who has socio-emotional problem. When I'm dealing, you know, being in my field, I've dealt with many parents from Africa whose children have been subjected to being told they have a disability in socio-emotional development. Just because the child cannot keep their hands to themselves, just because the child is always interrupting the teacher, just because the child is hitting other children, that just because of things that in our culture we may not see them as that sensitive or that they warrant intervention. In this country, we have to be very careful because those aggression behavior, not going to school all the time, antisocial behavior, and can be as serious as substance abuse, can be considered as challenging behavior, and it may warrant intervention, special services. And that's why it's very important how we parent our children, be very careful, because again, we may have good intentions. You know, I would never question somebody's parenting style. Again, as we say, we learn from our parents before. So we may use some, I would say, strategies that were effective for us, because you are beaten, the other child was beaten, you go play and laugh about it and no big deal. Today it's different. That child will only be with you and then go to school. And so we have to be very careful, because again, we don't want to be embroiled in legal issues that may be detrimental to our well-being in this country. I'm not saying it's wrong what we do. We have the best interest for our children, but we have to be very cautious and careful, because I know somebody shared about the issue, and you know, it's good to have some time to reflect and say, okay, we know this is the right thing, we don't want to spoil, but what other ways can we use to still guide our children and support them? And so those are things that can take me a whole day presenting about. And so if that could be an issue around here, I wouldn't mind maybe another time I can come discuss more of how to go about it. These are things I'm talking about that can still be regarded as challenging behavior. Even a child just keeping to themselves, isolating, they don't want to interact with others, they don't want to be involved in activities. You know what, they may start finding out what's going on at home. It doesn't have to be a child who is hitting. It can even be a child who doesn't want to talk, shy, her voice changes when talking to teachers, you know, changes and talks like a child and shouldn't be, in a very high-pitched voice. That is a red sign. The child may be getting some abuse in the home. And you know, abuse, again, we define it differently based on where we are. So we have to be very careful how our children present themselves in the school and how we interact with them and how we guide them in their behavior, teach them to behave the way we think is right, because we are teachers, you know. If we teach children mathematics, then we need to teach them behavior, because they are learning how to behave. And so we have to be very careful and always isolate the behavior and the child. Love your child and embrace your child. Address that behavior. That behavior that is challenging is what you should be attacking, not your child. Your child, love your child and deal with the behavior. That's something we need to learn how to go about it. And as I said, I teach this class, challenging behavior, a whole semester. So it involves a lot. And so, but that's something we really need to think about. And be careful, because again, as I say, we don't want to be involved in legal issues that can affect our stay in this country. It will make you have sleepless nights. Do you need that? No. So what can we do differently to avoid it? We may do it innocently, and nobody should be blamed getting into that problem. But on the other hand, what we learn from it? So we have to be reflective. So what I'm saying here is, you can't make me and the other, that's a rabbit, I'll do it wrong so you will sit with me. Now this, I was kind of thinking of the story I mentioned where we are so involved in our work, we have time to be with our children. Sometimes they'll be seeking that attention by misbehaving and doing wrong things because they want you. There's always a reason in behavior. They are either needing something or trying to seek something or avoiding something. So sometimes the misbehavior, you need to understand the underlying reason. We call that function of behavior. What is the underlying reason for the behavior? When we identify that underlying reason, then we are able to address it. It may be us as parents, it may be the environment of your child, it may be what your child is going through. It doesn't always